Now for description of the superior surface of the body. Now in the superior surface of the body, if you start to see from anterior most, the first structure that we see here, this is a triangular bony projection known as the ethmoidal spine. And here is the area with which the sphenoid gets articulated with the cribriform plate of the ethmoid. So the ethmoidal spine is a triangular midline projection and it will be articulating with the posterior margin of the ethmoid bone. If you can see here, so this is the base of the skull that we are seeing here. In the base of the skull, this is the area for the sphenoid, and here this is the cribriform plate of the ethmoid with which the anterior part or this ethmoidal spine has already been articulated. So this is another view. Again, now if we consider one by one from the upper surface, what are the areas that we have to be seeing. So first of all, we have to see that this is the flattened plate, and this flattened plate is known as the jugum sphenoidale. It is a piece of the bone upon which rests the gyrus rectus of the frontal lobe, as also the olfactory tract. So again we go to the base of the skull. So when we look into the base of the skull, then what we find, this is the area for this anterior cranial fossa, and here is actually lying the gyrus rectus of the frontal lobe. The two frontal lobes of the cerebrum, they lie here, and here lies actually the olfactory tract. So this area is the jugum sphenoidale. Immediately behind the jugum sphenoidale, if we come backwards, we come to a transverse shallow groove-like structure which is known as the sulcus chiasmaticus. So the sulcus chiasmaticus is the area over which actually rests what? The optic chiasma. And what is the optic chiasma? It is the crossing which is formed by the two optic nerves. So the right optic nerve going and the left optic nerve, the two nerves cross in the midline and they too form the optic chiasma which lies over the sulcus chiasmaticus. This is the foramen which is, we can see here, the sulcus chiasmaticus is leading on either side to the optic canal. So this is here, my wire is going into the left optic canal. This one is going into the left optic canal, if we can see, and here this one, if we place the wire, then this is going into your right optic canal, right? So this is the area after which now we go from this area for the sulcus chiasmaticus. We now go backwards, slightly again backwards. Then we find that there is a raised tubercle-like structure known as the tuberculum celli. And the tuberculum celli is actually giving attachment to the diaphragma celli. The tuberculum celli, it is actually posterior limit of sulcus chiasmaticus. It is providing anterior attachment of the diaphragma celli. So what is diaphragma celli? If you look into this area, then from the side view, if I show you, this one is the dorsum celli and this is the tuberculum celli. From tuberculum celli up to the dorsum celli, there passes a dura mater roof, a projection of dura mater, which is actually covering this hypophyseal fossa or the sella turcica. This is the pituitarial fossa, the hypophyseal fossa. So we find that here is the tuberculum celli, then it goes to the diaphragma celli, gives attachment from the tuberculum celli up to the dorsum celli, and here lies the sella turcica or the Turkish saddle. In Turkish language it means the saddle or the cradle, where lodges the pituitary gland, hypophysis cerebri. And on each side of tuberculum we will find small projections. We find small projection known as this medial crinoid process. We find the small projections from the tuberculum celli. If we look, if we go back into the sphenoid bone, then into the sphenoid bone, from here we can find that this is the two middle clinoid processes, and this lesser wing, the posterior margin, is rounding and it is forming the anterior clinoid process. So from the anterior clinoid to the middle clinoid process, there gives attachment to the carotidoclinoid ligament. Carotidoclinoid ligament, which may be ossified to bone also. So this carotidoclinoid ligament below this may often form a foramen that is known as the carotidoclinoid foramen, which may form between the ligament and the body of the sphenoid, the carotidoclinoid ligament and the body of the sphenoid, and it may give passage to the upturned course of internal carotid artery, which will lie along this side. That is the lateral surface of the body of the sphenoid. Now, often sometimes in hypophyseal fossa, we may find that there is a small craniopharyngeal canal. Median small craniopharyngeal canal may be there occasionally in the floor of the fossa, which is believed to be remnant of the Rathke's pouch. Rathke's pouch structure, from which anterior lobe of pituitary gland is developed. Now, in this bone, actually particular part of the dorsum celli is worn off. So, in order to show you this thing properly, I will again revert back to the base of the skull. And here in base of skull, if we look, then you will find that this is the area which is known as the dorsum celli, and the dorsum celli is actually going, it is a square like plate of bone projecting upward, and it is also presenting somewhat a conical surface or a projection, and this gets continuous with basic occiput posteriorly if we go, and then it forms the known as the, this one is known as the cleavers. From the basic occiput to the dorsum celli, this entire posterior surface of dorsum celli slopes downwards and backwards and become continuous with the upper surface of basic occiput, and here lodges what? Here lodges actually the upper part of the pons. And on either surface of the dorsum celli, we will have the two posterior clinoid process. We have the two posterior clinoid process. Lateral margin of dorsum celli, rather, again if we look, we will find that there is some process which is known as the petrosal process. So you look back again into this. So see from here, this one is the sella turcica. So this one, we find that this is the sella turcica, this is the raised dorsum celli. Here it is going downwards, backwards, and on lateral surface of dorsum celli, if we find, then we find that here lies this is the petrosal process. So this one is the petrosal process. And what is the significance? The petrosal process is actually often connected to the tip of the petrous part of the temporal bone by the help of the petrosphenoid ligament. Immediately below petrosphenoid ligament, actually abducens nerve pierces dura mater to appear in the cavernous sinus, and actually cavernous sinus position is on the along the lateral surface of the body of the sphenoid. So this is the area where actually it is the location for the cavernous sinus. Here this is the petrosal process. See, very good petrosal process we can see in this specimen of the bone. So this one is the petrosal process, and it is attached, if you find, so this is actually the petrous part of the temporal bone. Petrous part of temporal bone gets attachment with the petrosal process, and it forms a petrosphenoid ligament sort of structure beneath which pass the abducens nerve by piercing the dura mater. So this is about entire superior surface of the body of the sphenoid. Now let us come to the inferior surface. Now as of the inferior surface, if I want to show you, inferior surface is actually, you will find that there is already some piece of the vomer articulating in the inferior surface. So underneath this lies the sphenoidal rostrum. In the inferior surface, we will have to find three features. So first of all, there is actually, this is the area where remains the sphenoidal rostrum, which is actually a median ridge and it projects downward. It is continuation from the sphenoidal crest anteriorly. Anteriorly there remains the sphenoidal crest. Separating between, in the anterior surface we will have the two choana, the sphenoidal concha, that we will have the two sphenoidal concha, the upper vertical part and lower horizontal part, and we can also find that these are the openings of the sphenoidal A sinuses. And here we find that part of the vomer is actually articulating. The vomer has two diverging lips, the ali of the vomer, they are receiving the sphenoidal rostrum. So this is an area, this joint is actually, it is a syndialysis, it is a syndialysis, right? And if you look into the vaginal process, so this one is the vaginal process and this one is the vaginal process. The two vaginal process, if we look into the two vaginal process, then we find that it is actually, the vaginal process are what structures of the sphenoid in the inferior surface. They are actually projecting like a shelf. They are projecting medially, downward and horizontally, just like a shelf, narrow triangular shelf from the base of the medial pterygoid plate. This is the medial pterygoid plate and this is its base, and from its base this vaginal process of the sphenoid is projecting. And as it is projecting, the upper surface of the vaginal process will articulate with the lateral margin of the ali of the vomer. So this is vaginal process and it is articulating with the, this is the vomer, this is part of vomer which we can attach here, see, and it is articulating with the ali of the vomer. And upper surface of this is articulating to form one canal like structure. So what is that? That is known as the vomerovaginal canal. So here lies actually the vomerovaginal canal in between the vaginal process and the ali of the vomer. So it can be seen also from this surface. Yes, if you can see, so this is the vaginal process. It is extending as a plate or shelf like structure from the medial pterygoid plate, and this is the ali of the vomer, and in between these two there will be, we find that this narrow aperture that we find, that this is the vomerovaginal canal, and here in this side this is also the vomerovaginal canal, and this actually does not transmit any significant structure. Now anterior margin of the vaginal process and the adjoining lower surface articulates with the upper surface of the sphenoidal process of the palatine bone and to form the palatino-vaginal canal that will transmit the pharyngeal vessels and the nerves. So we will have to see, in order to see this, that is the palatino-vaginal canal for the transmission of the, so here remains articulation with little bit of the palatine bone. If we want to see the palatine bone articulation from here, you will have to see this structure. Here remains actually the attachment of the palatine bone. This is the area for the attachment of the palatine bone. And when we see, we find that this is actually one half of the skull that we are having, and in which we can see this is the larger area which we can find here, that we can see here, this is the sphenoidal sinus opening that is actually when it was broken, and that is inside this one is the part of the dorsum celli, and here is actually lying the cleavers. So now we come to the anterior surface. In the anterior surface of the body, what we find there is a vertical placement, that is the sphenoidal crest, and it is a median ridge which articulates this sphenoidal crest. It is a median ridge which is articulating with the posterior border of the perpendicular plate of ethmoid bone, and it is forming a part of the nasal septum. So this articulates with the posterior border of the perpendicular plate of ethmoid. So in order to see this, we can again see this one. Here you can see the sphenoid. This is the frontal bone. It is actually part of the frontal bone that we are having, which we are having actually the part of the frontal bone articulating with the sphenoid here, and we can see also that this is the cribriform plate of the ethmoid. And from the anterior aspect, when we try to see, so we find that this is actually the area for the anterior surface of this sphenoid. And in the anterior surface of the sphenoid, again we go back to our original single bone specimen, then we find that there are the two sphenoidal foramen. This is the sphenoidal foramen which we are able to find. So this completes the sphenoidal foramen. Is actually the area through which the sphenoidal sinus is communicating with the sphenoethmoidal recess of superior meatus of the nasal cavity. So it is actually a communication area for this sphenoidal air sinus, which is a paranasal air sinus, to communicate with this, that is the superior meatus of the nasal cavity. Now, considering this posterior surface of the body, we find it is rough and quadrilateral, and this part, that is dorsum scelli, which is the posterior surface, it actually articulates with the primary, by formation of one primary cartilaginous joint. This articulates with basi occiput. So that we have already shown you in the base of the skull. So this is in the basi occiput. This is the formation of the primary cartilaginous joint, which ossifies by bone between the age of the 20 to 25 years. And if bony fusion takes place at an earlier age, say at the level of the age of 15 years, then it will affect the anteroposterior growth of base of skull. And this area, as I have already told you, that dorsum scelli has to slope downwards and backwards, become continuous with the this area that is known as the clevus from part of the basi occiput, and it gives lodgement to the upper part of the pons. So this completes everything about the body of the sphenoid. And in my next class, we will be discussing about the greater wings, lesser wings, and the pterygoid processes. So thank you.